Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Week 10 of the Simulation Football League. I am Mike Daggs. He is Gerald Smith. It's the Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show. Gerald, we will have a really brief recap for Week 9, as only one game was played. Most teams were on a bye week, so yeah.
I think we had about 24 teams on a bye week. It seems like only Canton played last week, considering what the.
I mean, Florida played too.
Did they though? Like it's almost like they forgot to show up. Because look, and that made 2 losses in a row. It's not any kind of a thing we see from Florida. They did not show up. It's like they stayed at home. They wanted a bye week with everybody else.
So
apparently.
I see you didn't get it all out of your system during our midseason review show. You're still throwing shade.
I'm done.
Are you done now?
Now I'm done. Now I'm done.
All right. Well,
let's carry over.
We'll see. There's still 4 games to break down. We'll see if he's actually done or not. But yeah, Florida shut out. Florida shut out last week. For those that don't know, the first time in their 217-game history in the league, that is the first shutout that they have ever experienced. Obviously, a very winning franchise, multiple championships, back-to-back defending champions. I mean, this is not a franchise that gets shut out, and they did.
No, and Canton actually came in and actually tried to prove me wrong with how I think that Houston has some of the best running, players that the game has ever seen, at least the last couple of seasons. And Kent says, "Hey, look, man, we're gonna bump that."
Yeah, I think you're just mad that Florida was your pick last week and they lost.
That's definitely it.
I gained a little bit of ground on you. So hey, new fun addition to the show. Remember last season I promised that we would add some new twists to the show throughout. So new fun addition. I can now see the chat.
So 100%. That's
finally
right. I can see it too.
Grant Hardaway's with us. We got Switch Thumper, the Lake Man himself is in the chat. I think I saw T. DeQueen up there earlier. Listen, I only see 6 lines of the chat, but the chat's there nonetheless. Switch Thumper saying that you look like you're going to make him an offer that he can't refuse.
Yeah, maybe so.
The
Only time will tell.
We'll find out. Guy Clausen, he's with us too. Glad to have you all with us on the show. Glad Clausen,
because I can't say
his name. Yeah. So listen, that Florida Canton game, Canton dominating on the ground. So they rushed the ball 44 times between their 3 backs, Logan Lee, Robert Johnson, and of course fullback Bill Cherry. 233 yards combined between them. That's a good way to win a football game.
Yeah, and they didn't have to take any chances with the ball in the air. If you're running the ball well and you're doing it well, just like they did, there's no reason to do anything else. And they dominated.
Doug Day says that we are so cool. I don't disagree. The man's got a point. Anyway, all right, let's keep going. Let's break down the Week 10 schedule. This one's going to take a little bit longer than last week's. We only had 1 game to announce this past week. Now we've got 12 to roll through. Starting with 3 tonight, we've got another great Friday night of action for you here. So anybody that's been missing that SFL action, good news. Tonight you get 3 games to choose from, starting with Nashville at Charleston. That's going to be a game we're going to break down. I know that one's going to be a fun one.
And we flexed it in. We flexed it in.
Selected this game.
We sure did.
We asked the genie. We're allowed 3 wishes each season, and this was one of our wishes. The genie, Mr. Irvine, he allowed us to flex this game in. So, for Nashville and Charleston fans, if you hate us both, because I know I kind of picked on Charleston a few weeks ago, and you just shredded them in our mid-season review show. Yeah. Listen, if you don't like us, I'm sorry, but I literally hand-selected this game to be on this first Friday block. I'm looking forward to calling it. I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 teams. It's going to be great. At 10:15, we've got our next pair of games kicking off. Chicago at Fort Worth, which is the game we flexed out. If it ends up being a great game, and we're going to look like idiots, but wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. Tyler Falk, Alden Bleeker on the call. And then at 10:30, Vancouver, Albuquerque. Chris Slovic. For people wondering, who? When you hear his voice, you'll remember who Mr. Slovic is.
Yeah, you'll know who he is.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of one-liners that is just infamous in my mind.
What are we talking about? Chicken grease?
I love it.
Still don't know what we're betting on. What are we betting on?
What are we betting on? Chicken grease?
Still don't know what it means.
Me neither.
But it was a great call.
It was epic.
Chris Slovic and Anthony Ellison on the call at 10:30. That's our Friday block. Grant Hardaway, he knows who he is. He said, wow, he's back. He is back. He is back. He is still he's still overseas. I think it's actually going to be 7 in the morning at 10:30 p.m.
Well,
Eastern,
and the Moose even knows who he is as well.
Well, good. At least he's got a couple of fans. Tune in 10:30 Vancouver, Albuquerque. Chris Slovic, Anthony Ellison on the call. That's our Friday block. Saturday kicks off 6:30 p.m. Eastern time with Queen City at Indianapolis. Jacob Clear and Brett Solberg on the call together. And then we've got at 6:45 DC, Lexington, Cameron Duty, Ramos Lynn. There's a pairing of a couple of broadcasters. Cameron Duty on play-by-play.
It's a whole lot of
Ramos
accents.
Dramas.
And there's a whole lot of accents happening.
Yeah. You
that
got the Southern
Appalachian
boy.
accent.
Yeah. Southern boy and a Mexican.
Yeah. And with the Mexican accent, it'd be great.
It's going to be an interesting ethnic call. I like it. Good stuff. Baltimore at Bossier City's at 9 p.m. Ethan Muslin, Wade Phillips on the call. Los Angeles at Mexico City. Mexico City is going to be wearing Australian alternate uniforms in honor of our 3 Australian players. We collect them there. Liam Ryan, we've got Jacob Morrison, and of course Gerard Brody. Liam Ryan, I think, has a pet koala. If he doesn't, he talks about koalas all the time. I don't know, but we love our Australian players, and we're doing some Australian alternates. So I thought, you know what we need to do?
Perfect.
We got to have the Australian on play-by-play because it's only fitting. So Jacob Clear,
it's a perfect thing.
I thought so. Mickey Malillo is going to be on analysis for that game. That's going to be a fun one no matter what. So that is our Saturday block. On Sunday, Arizona at Denver kicks things off at 6:30 Eastern with the dynamic duo, Chris Curtis, Mike O'Neill on the call. Motor City at Canton will be Mark Lopez and Alex West. Then at 9 p.m., we've got Carolina at Atlanta. That's going to be an important divisional game. We're going to talk about that one in actually just a couple minutes here. Brett Solberg and Eddie Gage. Speaking of some dynamic duos, we got Brett Solberg on play-by-play along with one of the best analysts that we've ever had, Eddie Gage. Love the way he breaks down the games and the plays. His football IQ is the same number that Grant Hardaway typed in the chat.
No matter how high his football IQ is, God, he just can't get that elusive pick six.
Well, especially being retired, it makes it even harder.
Yeah, he's never going to get it.
Your Revs visit Pittsburgh at 9:15. Alex West, Rochelle Colston on the call. And then, of course, the Monday Night Spectacular this week, Minnesota at Houston, Cameron Irvine and Charles Doherty with some fresh drone footage from Dags Drone Works. Shameless plug. Don't care. It's my show. It's our show. I'm sorry. Don't be like my wife and be like, this is our house, not your. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's your show. I'm just here.
That's true. It's my microphone anyway. But yeah, we got some fresh drone footage that was taken at this last convention. So look forward to seeing that on the air. And yeah, good stuff. That's our Week 10 slate. So let's start breaking down some games. First one we're going to break down is going to be one of our Sunday night games. And then we're going to talk about all 3 Friday games because why not? We've got some Friday games coming up, and let's we'll break all those down. But I know we had to talk about this Carolina at Atlanta game Sunday 9 p.m. It's going to be an important divisional game, not even just for these 2 teams, in my opinion, it's for everybody in the East, because the East Division is the most hotly contested division in the league right now. Carolina and Atlanta, technically and literally, I guess, they're 4th and 5th. Currently in the rankings in that division, with Carolina at 4-3 and Atlanta at 4-4. The number 4 team has a winning record. That's how hotly contested this division is. All right. But number 3, Charleston, that plays next here, is also 4-3. And number 2, Nashville, who they play, is at 5-2. They both play tonight, and they both could be 5-3 before this night is over. One of those teams is also going to have 5 wins at the conclusion of Week 10. So, you know, between Atlanta or Carolina, that is. So, you know, that'll flip everything upside down. The number 1 team, well, that's Florida. They just dropped their 2nd game of the season. So 6-2. Normally that's a pretty good record. It's not as comfortable of a record as it would normally be for the number 1 team, with potentially multiple teams below you having 5 wins before this weekend is out. Carolina, they're 1-1 in the division. They most recently had a win over, you guessed it, Florida. So, you know, I mean, if they end up getting the same record, they'll have that tiebreaker. Atlanta, they're just getting into their divisional schedule. This is their first divisional game of the season, and they only have divisional games remaining. So this whole division can still get completely flipped. Atlanta's at number 5 here in Week 10. Before the season's out, they could be number 1.
True. So
it starts Sunday anyway. So let's talk about this game. We'll talk about Carolina.
Yeah, look, and I think this is a must-win game for both squads, especially if they have a chance at claiming the East as their own, right? So Carolina, they're coming off a huge upset of Florida in their last game. Look, and they are looking to build on that, carrying it over. Hey, winning like that, going into the bye week feeling good, and then they're going to build on that going into this week as well. Their passing offense was efficient in that win against Florida, and they will have to have a repeat performance just like that to beat what I consider a very good Atlanta squad.
For sure.
Quarterback Matt South will have to keep that completion percentage above 50% to help his team win. If not throw the ball to the other team, because he does have only 3 touchdowns and 13 interceptions thus far. Now, let's just see, like, in all their wins right here. So against Florida, he completed 67% of his passes. In the other 3 wins, he passed for 35%, 36%, and 41% completion, but they were able to pull those games out. So running back Wally Quintero has had a pretty good season thus far. He ranks 8th in rushing. They will have to lean on the run game a little bit more to open up the pass, maybe create a lot more better passing lanes for Matt South for him to have much more success on offense. So if they can somehow repeat what they did against Florida offensively and actually be efficient and have Matt South throw for a higher percentage in completion, I think they might have a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also going to come down to their defense. Their defense is arguably where they're strongest. It's obviously a huge reason for why they're 4-3.
Yeah, they are top 5 in takeaways, despite getting very limited pressure on the opposing quarterback. They rank 9th in total defense. So, look, and they're no slouches there, right? So they're doing pretty good. Their offense just puts them in tough situations, right? So they have risen to the challenge of, kind of holding down the fort and stuff like that. But can they continue to do so as they did last week against, some of the top tier opponents with Atlanta right here? We do think that they're above average.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about them being potentially, not potentially, they're the 5th ranked team in the East Division, but they're 4-4, and arguably, as far as 4-4 teams go, they're the best 4-win team in the league.
And I think they could be the best 4-win team in the league, right? Especially at sitting at 500, right? They have arguably the best quarterback in the SFL so far this season in Bryant Dynasty. He is top 6 in every quarterback category and is the number 1 passer in the SFL.
Sure.
He has been efficient passing, and he's number 3 in QBR and has 11 touchdowns, which is number 2 in the SFL. And he has, it's almost like some studly wide receivers, and Boot Chisholm, who seemed like he's come out of nowhere, seeing he had a down season last season, doing great stuff again, from the Hall of Famer Boot Chisholm, and Fox Highwind coming back on the team as well, are top 10 in receptions in the league right now, right? Yeah. So in receiving yards, and they have caught 7 of Dynasty's 11 touchdown passes this season. So BDG has been productive well this season, right? But I think Atlanta offensively need him to be just a little bit better, because they'd had a tough time playing against some of these better teams. So he needs to be a little bit better so they can get a lot better play against the top teams in the league, right? So, and they're going to have to do it if they want to try and win the East.
Yeah, definitely. And on the flip side, we talked about how Carolina's defense is potentially their strength that's helping them get to their 4 wins. Atlanta is maybe their defense is maybe what's cost them some of their wins and why they're 4-4.
Yeah, in my opinion, they struggled, right? They've been having difficulty getting off the field on 3rd downs, allowing 58% conversions on 3rd down. They don't pressure the quarterback particularly well either, right? And they only have 6 sacks on the season. I think that has contributed to their struggles on 3rd down.
Yeah.
If you're not able to pressure the quarterback, he has plenty of time to find somebody open. If you're not pressuring him, somebody's eventually going to get open, and the receivers don't catch the ball and just run down the field. So if they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to get off the field on 3rd downs and give their offense back the ball to give themselves a better chance. Like you said, at competing in the East and maybe making the playoffs.
They've got Alex Dominguez, big sexy, on that defensive line. They got to get him going. I mean, he's
only 6 sacks. Some players in the SFL have 6 sacks alone.
I'm pretty sure he's had 6 sacks in a game in the past when he was part of Florida. I think he sacked Matt Willson 6 times in a game. If Matt was here, he'd tell you he did. Whether it's true or not, it's a different story.
He used to be a thing of nightmares.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's the Carolina Atlanta game Sunday night, 9 p.m. Don't want to miss that one. It's going to be a big one. JW Hart says koalas rule. He is right. Koalas are adorable. Fun fact behind the scenes, I have a little koala attached to my broadcasting microphone.
I literally thought you was going to talk about koalas and how much their brains, they're the dumbest animals.
They're dumb. They're adorable little animals. They're not even bears, I guess. They call them koala bears. They're not bears, but they're marsupials, I guess. kind of like a kangaroo. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Do they have a pouch? I'm not sure. They're just dumb little bears, you know. But it's a whole. We're way off topic. I don't even know what we're talking about. So koalas are adorable, but they are disgusting. Yeah. See, Tim Wright here in the chat. He says most of them, you know, in the wild have the clap. So there you go. Your fun fact of the show. I'm glad we can see the chat now. This is fantastic. I don't know what that was, but let's move on. All right.
Okay.
We got 3 games tonight. The timer is ticking. Listen, we can't go over because of other people now. We do it on our own enough. Vancouver, Albuquerque, 10:30 p.m. tonight. You familiar with Katy Perry's song "Hot and Cold"?
Sure.
Yeah, you know, because you're hot, then you're cold. You're yes, then you're no. You're in, then you're out. You're up, then you're down. Those I'm not going to sing it, but I really should. Because no, I'm not gonna. Too bad. That'll be on the after-hour show. Listen, I think that song describes these two teams perfectly. Okay,
I would agree.
Yeah, they both started off the season with a loss, then they came back in week 2 with a resounding win, multiple scores win. Only both of them to lose their 3rd game of the season by 3 scores each. And so the story of season 23 continues. I mean, these two teams they're just having a tough time. But it's a West Division battle between these two. They've got Arizona at 7-0 out in front of that division. But Vancouver and Albuquerque both effectively are tied for second at 3-4. And this game will definitively place one of those two teams in that number 2 spot behind Arizona. And unless disaster happens in Arizona, I'm not trying to jinx you, Eddie Gage. Don't call me and yell at me. You can call me and say hello sometimes, but don't yell at me. Listen, these teams are fighting for a wild card spot, and this game is crucial tonight to get that process started. What's Vancouver got to do with their offense?
Well, I can't figure out what Vancouver wants to be, right? In their wins, they score 24 points or more. In their losses, they have only scored 1 touchdown. In their 4 losses, they scored 1 touchdown. And that's not, I mean, that's just not good offensive production, right? So they have been inconsistent to say the least. It's odd because they have a top, in yards wise, have a top 10 total offense. You know, I think it's due to their inability to convert on 3rd down, which, you know, obviously we know if you convert on 3rd down, it's another first down. They rank 3rd to last in SFL in that category. Yeah. So if you're not turning your 3rd down to first down, you're just not doing what you need to do. When your offense struggles on 3rd down, you will struggle to score points, right? The offense has been mediocre, right? I know they showed some greatness at times, but they're just so inconsistent. We don't know what we're going to get from them from one week to next. When they lose, it's pretty bad. Their offense just doesn't show up.
Yeah.
But guess what? When they do, hey, they can score 20+ points.
Yeah, the defense has been obviously nothing short of amazing because of those negative situations that the offense puts them in. That's part of the reason that they've got those 3 wins.
Yeah, and they actually, they boast the number 2 total defense in the SFL. They are top 5 in sacks and TFLs, which means they play the line of scrimmage extremely well, right? They have one of the best defensive lines in the SFL with 12 of their 14 sacks on the season coming from that Studley defensive line that they have. Look, they have done very well, especially with the struggles from the offense that has had at times. So if that offense can just catch up, I do think Vancouver could, try and it seems, look, they're not going to win that division at all, especially the way they sit right now. I just don't see Eddie Gage losing 4+ games, but they can get themselves back in the playoffs. And we know Vancouver has been consistently a playoff team, but they just have to get that offense back on track because they had the defense to be able to, be complement to that offense if they can turn it around.
Yeah, definitely. And, hot and cold teams, I don't think any of them take the cake more than Albuquerque. They've just been mind-numbingly confusing with how they've played throughout this season. Alton Bleeker in the chat even says, I have to respect the Adams because, of how they basically were in the SFLM, always just running it all over everybody. But so far in the major league, up and down. Talk about Albuquerque.
And they've been extremely similar to Vancouver on both sides of the ball with the struggles they had. The offense struggled to score points, and the defense is left to pick up the pieces, right? Yep. Quarterback Cyrus has had a pretty good season thus far and is top 10 in most quarterback categories. The run game has struggled a bit, which has slowed down the offensive production that they had, right? Defensively, they don't apply much pressure to the quarterback, just like Vancouver does. Vancouver does really well on that side, and they just kind of don't. So, but you have been, but what they have been good at is limiting, the yards allowed, right? So if they can do that, they just need more offensive production to get them the wins, right? So the defense is able to kind of slow them down a little bit. They're a little bit better, but their offense is just so out of whack. And they too have a defense that can, coupled with a better offense, they can do some damage because they've shown some good stuff. They beat good teams like Fort Worth and everything else, just like Vancouver. If I'm not mistaken, I think Vancouver beat Baltimore.
Right.
So you look at it, these two teams can't put up points. They're just so inconsistent in doing so.
Well, one of them is going to have to get some consistency tonight. One of them is going to get the win. They'll get their 4th win of the season and get back to 400. For the other team, they fall even further into the hole. So 10:15 p.m. tonight, we've got Chicago at Fort Worth. Chicago's had a rough season, to say the least. So thus far, they're sitting at 1-6. Fort Worth, however, they won 3, then they lost 3. They got back to their winning ways against Houston in Week 8. They won 20-13. Fort Worth has a lot on the line. We talked about the East being a hotly contested division. South is contested as well, maybe not as much so. I mean, the teams aren't quite as close, but Fort Worth is sitting at number 2 in the South, only 1 game back from Mexico City. Mexico City does have the tiebreaker over them, but Fort Worth could take that number 1 spot again. If they lose this one and Mexico City wins this weekend, it'll be extremely unlikely for Fort Worth to be able to win the South again. For Chicago, they're effectively playing for pride at this point. Very difficult to get into the playoffs at 6-6, and that's the best they could possibly finish. But I know they are not mailing it in. I was speaking to head coach type attack this week, head coach and quarterback type attack. And listen, they want to play spoiler. They want to finish strong. They want to see what they got for next season at minimum. They're going to be playing some ball. And listen, Doug Day says, be kind, Gerald. He knows we can see that message now. So I'm sure you don't care, and you're going to say whatever you want. Start with Chicago.
Look, Chicago. I'm not sure what happened to the team, right, with their move from Seattle to Chicago. Look, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they have had the toughest schedule out of any team so far this season. So their strength of schedule is number 1, right? Yeah. They have been shut out twice. The offense, of production has been near the bottom in the SFL. The defense is in the same statistically with being near the bottom in all defensive categories. Look, my theory, if you guys just hear me out, had they not changed their colors from the bomb pop colors, because we know, I asked them why they look like the bomb pops when they was in minors. They say because they the bomb. Yeah. Who knows where they'd be right now?
They blew up.
So we don't know where they'd be right now. So I think, hey, maybe let's throw some throwbacks in there.
They don't even need to wait till the off season.
No, you just throw right in there. Wear them.
Yeah,
they said they was the bomb. Let's bring back the bomb pop colors. It was a little bit of refreshment. Makes me think I need to go get the bomb pops at the store.
We should do a show. Listen, I'll tell you what. Here's what I'll say. If they bring back the bomb pop colors, we will do a show holding a bomb pop. We'll eat it. Well, we are doing the show. That was a little encouragement. Or maybe that frightens them away from the idea altogether. I have no idea. But one of my contender picks from last week, even as much as it pained me, Fort Worth, much respect, but not much love. Fort Worth, they were one of my contenders from last week, and I know in our conversations you agree with that pick.
Yeah, I do. And look, and I couldn't agree more. Mike picked them as a contender. Look, yes, they had a 3-game losing streak, but they have the coaching and the talent to get them back on track. And offensively, they are equipped with studs. Jay-Z Bacon is 9th in rushing this season. Steven Hacker, good old grip it and rip it with no gloves, right? One of the best receivers I think the SFL has ever seen.
For sure.
Is 5th in receptions in the league right now. Look, they can be dangerously good when they are firing on all cylinders. And they too have had quite the tough schedule, right? That they've actually had. They played some tough opponents, so they haven't been playing any slouches. They just were down in luck, but they rebounded in the last game, beating a division opponent in Houston. And now they're back then, and they're sit at 4-3.
Yeah, and their defense is legit. Top 5 defense in points allowed, pass deflections, total defense. They're good unit.
And their defense has scored 3 touchdowns themselves, right, to actually help out the offense. So look, and it's all and it helps having a stud defensive end and Jerry Degon, who is 3rd in the SFL with 5.5 sacks. We mentioned somebody else who had 6 sacks total in the previous thing. He's got 5.5 himself. So look, they are also 2nd in the SFL in passes defense, which means that they are very good at preventing wide receivers from catching passes. 2nd best on 3rd down, so they're able to get off the field when they need to. They still have what it takes to win the South Division if they can keep winning. And if you guys take a little bit of a stumble, who knows?
We ain't stumbling. Go Aztecs. I'm going to make sure I work that into every show. I'm going to throw out a Go Aztecs. Alden Bleeker wants us to do some sort of podcast thing with Cam where he rates ice cream and we just eat bomb pops. I mean, it sounds weird, but I'm in.
Look, you can only have I can rate the bomb pops. Bomb pop, you got to have the original.
bomb.
Nothing's better than the originals. Don't
That's
get
for
the
sure.
sour and all that other grossness.
5 minutes from kickoff of our next game, Nashville at Charleston. During our week 8 show, I will say I questioned Charleston at 4-2. That's the nicest way. I'm trying to make myself sound better here on how good they really were at 4-2 as they went up against 2-4 Albuquerque. Obviously, Albuquerque did win that game. During our week 9 show, I don't know how else to say it. You shredded Nashville and other teams. Somehow you're talking about Nashville and you're just like throwing everybody under the bus all at the same time.
It was for dramatic effect.
You literally made me turn red. I was embarrassed.
I see.
Or maybe it was the reflection off the, I don't know. But listen, tonight these two teams face off, and one of them will get the dub. The East Division, like we talked about, the most highly contested division with Florida up top, and then the bottom team being Atlanta at only 4-4, Nashville at second at 5-2, Charleston at third at 4-3. So is Carolina. So, I mean, this division, it's a wild one. A win for Nashville ties them up with the defending champs record-wise. Florida will have the tiebreaker, so they would still be in number 1. A win for Charleston would tie them with Nashville, and then Charleston would hold that tiebreaker, moving them up to that number 2 spot. Only a single game behind the defending champs, Florida, who own the tiebreaker over them too, of course. So, but listen, there's quite a bit on the line for both of these two teams, and go ahead and break it down.
That was a whole lot you said. I remembered, I heard it all, but I kind of listened to none of it because it was a whole lot.
Figures. He is like my wife.
So look, I'm gonna give it over of both teams, right? Sure. Both teams are better on paper than what their records state, right? And I think you stated that a few weeks ago. I did that last week with in my breakdown of Nashville. So, but they can only play who's in front of them. Look, and they have both been doing pretty good with what they have, right? Nashville sits at 5-2, Charleston's 4-3. Both also have so many similarities in strength of schedule, strength of victory, and actually strength of defeat. Both are in the bottom third of the SFL in offensive yards, but both are top 10 in points scored on the offensive side, right? They're nearly identical in third down offensively. Nashville with 48%, Charleston with 49% conversion to first down. Defensively, they share similarities there as well.
Sure do.
Both are in the bottom half of the league in yards allowed. But again, they are top 10 in points allowed. They're not allowing a whole lot of points, just the same as the offense, right? Inside the top 10. They are both nearly identical on third down defenses. Nashville gives up 50%. Charleston gives up 49% conversion to their opponent. Now, Nashville has been extremely good at taking the ball away from their opponents. They lead the league in takeaways with 18 interceptions, and 4 of those have turned into immediate touchdowns by the defense. If they can take the ball away, they could be at 6-2. Tied with Florida in the East, which would be really, really good for them. Now, we know Florida has a tiebreaker right now, but that still puts them up there, right?
Plenty
One more slip
left.
of Florida, and they can slide right in. Now, for Charleston, they have to protect the ball and utilize all ball carriers to do so. The run game will be key for them in winning this game and games going forward. If they have success in the run game, they could be one game behind Florida after tonight.
We'll find out as this game gets kicked off in just a couple minutes here. First, let's get to our picks. I gained a little bit of ground on you. I'm now at 12-10. You're at 15-7, so you're still winning. You picked Florida. I picked Canton. Obviously, Canton got the win. That was our only game last week. This week, we're going to go back to picking 3 games. We'll start with the 3 that we broke down. We'll do the 3 that we broke down that we did not, or that we're not going to be calling. Carolina at Atlanta. Who do you got?
I think Carolina is still the pretenders that I think they are. And Atlanta, Carolina goes into Atlanta. I think Atlanta is one of the better, if not the best 4-win team in the league right now. Atlanta wins at home.
I'm going to pick Carolina on the road over Atlanta because I think you're totally wrong. Listen, you talked bad about Carolina. Wrong. Did you talk bad about Carolina last week?
Yeah.
They're going to get the win. There you go. Wow. Vancouver, Albuquerque. Who do you got?
I think Albuquerque right here because they are playing at home. They're both got this weird bipolar, kind of almost, either squat on the pot or get off. I think Albuquerque squats on the pot, has success, and they beat Vancouver at home.
I think Vancouver is going to get the win on the road. I'm going to pick the away team once again. Vancouver, they're just one of those teams I can never count out. And Albuquerque, they're just too confusing for me. I don't know. I know Albuquerque's hard to beat at home so far this season. I think Vancouver figures out a way to get it done. Chicago, Fort Worth.
So I can't pick Chicago because they are not the Chicago Bomb Pops anymore. They're the Chicago Warriors with a completely different color scheme. Fort Worth takes them at home.
Chicago is going to stun everybody tonight. They're going to get the win over Fort Worth. On the road, I'm going with all away teams. Chicago is not done fighting. Chicago is going to come out throwing that ball. They're going to tear up that field. They're going to score some points, and I'm going to get a little bit more edge over Fort Worth in the standings. That's all the time that we've got. Thanks for joining us for the Week 10 Matt Willson Weekly Kickoff Show. We've got Nashville at Charleston coming up next. Who's going to get the win? As Matt Willson would say, there's only one way to find out, and that's on the field. We will see you there.